I call to order the Gladstone City Council meeting for August 11th, 2020. It's 6:30 p.m. Good evening, everybody. Per the Governor's Executive Order 20-16 regarding compliance with Oregon's public meeting laws, the City of Gladstone is abiding by social distancing requirements during the coronavirus pandemic. This City Council meeting will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. The Zoom access instructions can be found on the meeting agenda. Members of the City Council, staff, and the public all have access to this call. Public comment requests were accepted prior to noon today and were to include your topic and phone number. Tonight, we will start with a presentation by Lucinda Broussard, who's the Oregon Department of Transportation Director, regarding the I-205 tolling project. Our consent agenda includes approval of the July 14th, 2020 meeting minutes, approval of the June bank balances, budget report for periods ending June 30th, 2020, approval of the June check register, legal costs on projects, department head monthly reports for July 2020, and traffic safety high visibility enforcement grant. Our regular meeting agenda includes Resolution 1182, updating the master fee schedule, a parklet pilot program, and an outdoor dining and retail and private parking lots program. Discuss appointment process to cities' boards, committees, and commissions for January of 2021. And we do have a business carried forward item, which is the update of the mutual agreement and order, referred to as an MAO, between the City of Gladstone and the Department of Environmental Quality, referred to as DEQ. Tammy, could you please call the roll?
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Neese?
Present.
Councilor Tracy?
Present.
Councilor Reisner?
Present.
Councilor Todd?
Here.
Councilor Mercero?
Here.
Mayor Stemple?
Here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So we're going to start with the presentation by Lucinda Broussard.
It's actually going to be Heather Willis, and I'm
Oh, hello, Heather.
and I'm making her the host right now.
Thank you. Actually, Hannah Williams is going to start us off.
Okay.
Sorry to cause so much confusion.
Okay, so I need to make her the host. Is that what you're saying?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm totally sharing.
Okay.
She's just starting off the presentation.
Okay. Thank you so much for having us. My name's Hannah Williams. I work for the Oregon Department of Transportation. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the toll program, and I'm here tonight with Heather Wills and Chi Mai. Thanks so much for having us. Next slide, please. All right, so we will be giving you a project update, and then we'll be diving into the I-205 purpose and need and talk about the goals and objectives for the project. And then we'll also be talking about the I-205 screening results. We'll have a discussion and then wrap things up with what's next. Next slide, please. Okay, so based on the results from our feasibility analysis, the I-205 toll project study area is Stafford Road to OR 213, and this includes the Abernathy Bridge. The I-205 toll project would raise revenue and manage congestion in the I-205 corridor. Now, these types of tolls would vary by time of day, and they'd be collected electronically, so drivers wouldn't be required to stop, and we wouldn't have any toll booths. Tolls could raise revenue for the planned I-205 improvements, including the seismic strengthening of the Abernathy Bridge. Next slide, please. In 2017 and 2018, we conducted the value pricing feasibility analysis, and this was a technical analysis with a lot of public input, and it really determined that tolls could raise revenue and manage congestion on I-5 and I-205. So you might be asking, what is value pricing? Value pricing is another term for tolling or congestion pricing, we like to say tolling because we think it's easier to understand. So during this feasibility analysis, there were many big concepts that we studied over a 15-month process. And this was for both I-5 and I-205. And our team worked with many different agencies and organizations, technical working groups, and a policy advisory committee. There were 8 open houses in both Oregon and Washington.
Just text me.
And we held presentations, we gave presentations to many local agencies, and there were 3 public comment surveys. And during this feasibility analysis, our online open house had about 13,000 views, and there were 500 people who attended in-person events, and we received 5,000 comments. Now, during the feasibility analysis, there were really three reoccurring comments that kept coming up over and over again. And so these themes from these comments were the need to think about impacts to folks who are experiencing a low income, the need to improve transportation options, including transit, and the need to think about diversion or rerouting and impacts to local streets. And so these comments, they've really become priorities for our toll projects, and we're working a way to address them. And these comments these are things that we're still hearing, you know, up through our engagement up to today. So they are top of mind for us. Next slide, please. So just to reiterate, these are include the comments that we heard, and then there are some additional ones that are on there. Next slide, please. So we have begun our 45-day public comment period. We are in our environmental review phase for the I-205 toll project. And we have an online open house in English and Spanish. And there's a lot of great information that's on there that can really help to explain the toll project. So I really encourage everyone to go and look at the online open house and let us know what you think. Later on in this presentation, Heather Wells is going to go into more detail about the purpose and need and the goals and objectives, and she's going to be talking more about the range of alternatives in the early screening. So here we have a timeline, and on the top is the I-205 toll project. So you can see we've started our environmental review process, and that's a 2-year process. So we anticipate wrapping that up in 2022. And below that is the I-5 toll project, and we will be beginning the planning and environmental linkages. And we anticipate beginning the environmental review process for I-5 in 2021. Now this next slide is similar to the previous slide, but it's kind of drilling down a little bit on the I-205 toll project NEPA milestones, and those milestones are in the gold diamonds. So the 45-day comment period, it's really going to inform the final purpose and need and the alternatives that we're going to carry forward into the analysis. And we'll be conducting about a year of more technical analysis with continued public engagement. And then we'll be selecting the preferred alternative, and that'll be prior to the publicizing of the environmental document. And with that document, that draft document, there will be a formal comment period again. And we anticipate having a decision expected in late 2022. And now Heather's gonna go into talking about the purpose and need and the goals and objectives for the I-205 toll project.
Thanks, Hannah. So as Hannah said, we have a 45-day comment period, and 2 of the items that we're asking for feedback on are the purpose and need and goals and objectives. So a purpose and need statement is part of the environmental review process. It really is the foundation for determining what you evaluate, what your project alternatives are going to be, and it helps limit the range of alternatives. So it's basically why we are doing the project. What's the problem that we're trying to solve? The goals and objectives, those are desirable outcomes of the project really beyond that transportation need. So you've got the transportation problem, but you've also got all the other things that you want to address, like ensuring that you reduce air quality, equity, all of those other things that will also help you compare the alternatives. So we develop qualitative and quantitative measures based on the goals and objectives. So it's really important to ensure that we're reflecting the stakeholder and community's values in these goals and objectives so that when we're analyzing the alternatives, we're evaluating them against those values. So the project purpose is to manage congestion and raise revenue on I-205 between Stafford Road and OR 213. The dial there is just illustrating that there is sort of a sweet spot in the middle where the toll rate will maximize both managing congestion and raising revenue. If you price it too high, you price people off the road. If you price it too low, then you don't really manage the congestion. So it's that sweet spot. Important to note here is that the toll rates that we're using in our analysis, they're assumptions that we've developed, but the Oregon Transportation Commission ultimately makes the decision about what the toll rate will be for the project. And that happens after the environmental review process. So one of the things that we did here is why don't you have equity in the purpose statement? Sorry, as host, I also have to admit people. So if I look over there, I'm admitting folks into the so ODOT is centering equity for the decision process and the outcomes. We have an equity and mobility advisory committee that's really guiding the equity approach through recommendations as well as through an equity framework, which they're looking at right now, a draft version of that. As I said, the goals and objectives, there are equity-focused goals and objectives. And so for the purpose statement, we're focusing on the transportation issue. And given that ODOT is really in the middle of trying to figure out what their equity definition is as an agency, we felt there was a lot more flexibility in the goals and objectives to define what we mean by that and use a lot of different measures related to equity. So the project need, these are just the supporting elements of why we're doing that project. The things that are in blue throughout are items that were addressed through a collaborative process we had with our regional partners. So we worked with folks from the city as well as staff from the cities in the region as well as the counties. And so there was a recommendation to add these to the need statements. And these are the goals and objectives. Again, the blue items are things that we added through that collaborative process with our project partners. These are available on our online open house and they go into a lot more detail. These are really bulleted out, but we have the full text of all of our goals and objectives as well as some of the performance measures that we would use to evaluate whether an alternative is meeting a goal or an objective. So after the 45-day comment period, as Hannah said, we will publish our purpose and need, and it will be final, and it'll be based on the comments that we received, as well as the range of alternatives. So she's going to talk about the alternatives analysis, the 5 alternatives that we looked at, and our recommendation for what should be carried into that more detailed environmental process. We are inviting participating agencies, and the City of Gladstone should have received an invitation to be a participating agency. And then, as Hannah said, in that 2 years, we'll we're starting a year-long analysis process, and we will prepare an environmental assessment, and then that would also have a 30-day formal comment period throughout. These are formal comment periods, but we continue to engage throughout the entire process. So there's no point at which we're not taking comments. There's just a more formal way that we package the comments during these formal comment periods. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chi Mai, and I'm a traffic engineer with ODOT. And tonight I'm going to walk you through the screening alternatives and the analysis results. Just to kind of give you some background, when we did the feasibility phase type work, it was at a very high level. It was mainly to identify if tolling was feasible, and then also if rerouting would happen. And then for this level of analysis, it's a screening level of alternatives. And again, we are identifying basically the scale of how these alternatives compare to each other, and the scale of rerouting if they take place. And so with that, please go to the next slide. This slide explains the 5 screening alternatives. And this slide and the next one is similar. This one has verbiage, and the next one has is more visual. So I'm going to ask that we go to the next one, and then I'll just describe what each is. The first alternative is directly concept C, that's from the feasibility analysis, and it is the simplest toll concept. It's just a point toll that's on the Appomattox Bridge. So if you cross the gantry, you pay a toll. And then we have a variation of that. We call it alternative 2. It's not shown graphically because it's very similar to alternative 1. It's basically taking, we place the gantries off of the bridge so that we would capture traffic that would get off at the interchange, one interchange, bypass the bridge by going through the local system, and then getting off at the next, getting on at the next interchange. So that's alternative 2. And alternative 3 at the lower left is basically what we call a segment toll. And we split the toll onto 2 locations. One would be at the Appomattox Bridge, and the other would be at the Tualatin River Bridge. So if you cross one bridge, you pay half a toll. And when you cross the second bridge, you pay the second half of the toll. And then alternative 4 on the upper right is also a segment toll, but we split the toll into 4 parts. So as you cross one segment, you pay a quarter of the total toll cost. And then alternative 5 is what we call a single zone toll. And with this, the zone is the segment from Stafford through to Oregon 213. And we place gantries on the main line and at all the on-ramps onto I-205, so that anywhere that you access I-205 within the toll zone, you pay the full toll amount, whether the distance is short or long. And then as far as the results, this slide and the next few slides will talk about the changes on I-205. And the analysis that we conducted was based off of the 2027 Metro Travel Demand Model. And the results shown are percentage changes. Again, with this level of analysis, it's more about the scale of the changes. And as we get more into refinement analysis, that's when the numbers become more concrete to us. But, and then for the analysis results, the alternative 1 and 2 are very similar in terms of the results. So we basically are just showing alternative 1 for the purpose of simplicity. So as you can see, I-205 has a reduction in volume for the day and also for the PM, but the PM, the reduction, the percentage is actually less than the daily reduction. And that's due to the demand. being greater on I-205 during the PM peak. Diversion off of 205, diversion is less significant immediately outside of the toll area. Generally, there's a 10 to 20% reduction actually between I-5 and Stafford, and also a reduction north of 82nd Drive. Next slide, please. So then when we, we just showed you what the decrease in traffic numbers or percentage were. Where does traffic divert to? Well, they reroute to regional roadways and then to local roadways. And then as far as transportation demand, people change their trips, the time of day that they take their trips to a time that's lower in toll costs. And then some people will change their destination, and then some people will change mode as well. But what does the model tells us? And so what it tells us is that there's potential for single occupancy vehicle trip reduction because the shift from single occupancy vehicle to high occupancy vehicle is roughly 4,000 to 5,000 additional high occupancy vehicle trips per day. And the trip from transit, the potential shift to transit is very small. It's less than 500 person trips a day. And that's based on the current assumption of what we assume the future transit condition is. And then there's no significant difference in mode share between the alternatives. Next, please. So then this is more of a regional of the vehicle miles travel. We have a reduction overall in the daily vehicle miles travel for this area. And then we have a reduction in vehicle hours travel with the greatest decline under alternative 4 and 5. And then we have a shift in vehicle demand away from the freeway to non-freeway routes. And we also have peak hours show greatest potential vehicle hours travel savings overall, with potential decrease on non-freeways as well as freeways. And in terms of comparing the daily change, it's less than 1% of the regional vehicle miles traveled or vehicle hours traveled. Next, please. So then the last few slides presented what happens on I-205, but then we're transitioning to sort of that regional trip if there was rerouting. The most obvious is that if you toll I-205, people would reroute to I-5. And you know, the results of the model is telling us that rerouting to I-5 is very minimal. Segments to the north shows anywhere from 0 to 5% increase trips on I-5. And then closer to I-5 at 205, we actually see a reduction, a slight reduction in trips. Next, please. And then we also picked out a few locations to demonstrate the rerouting beyond I-205. So here we have Oregon 43 south of Terwilliger. And across all the alternatives, we have an increase of trips between 5 to 10%. Stafford Road south of Eck Road, it's anywhere decrease of 10 to 20%. And then Stafford Road east of Southwest 65th, we also have a decrease in traffic. And then Oregon 99E in downtown Canby, this is where we see an increase in trips going through there. Next, please. And then to the slide that you're all waiting for, it's the rerouting through Gladstone. And we picked a location that is Oregon 99E at Clackamas River. It's a spot location. And we also picked a screen line that is between 82nd interchange and Oregon 43rd. And so basically at the spot location of 99E at Clackamas River, it depends. Alternative 1 and 3, you have a decrease in trips, but alternative 4 and 5 has an increase in trips, with alternative 5 having the highest increase of 20 to 30%. And then the Gladstone screen line, they all have an increase in trips, with alternative 1 and 3 being minimal, and alternative 5 being the highest increase, and alternative 4 just behind alternative 5 as having the second highest increase in trips. Next, please. And this is just to demonstrate another local location. As we mentioned earlier, it's the areas that's closest to the endpoint of the toll zone that has this type of impact. And so you saw that in Gladstone. And then this is that other location, which is Stafford, it's Borland. And so Borland east of Stafford, alternative 1, you see a decrease, and then alternative 3, 4, and 5, you have an increase. And similarly for Borland Road east of 65th Avenue, at that location, you see a variation in which alternative has an increase in traffic or decrease. But I would have to say that alternative 5 would have the highest increase or impact onto rerouting at the Borland east of Stafford Road. Next, please. And then just to kind of reiterate that as we go through each level or phase of analysis, we have more time, and we also have, we use higher level analysis tools to help answer these questions. So at the feasibility level, we were able to identify a potential impacted route. During this screening phase, we're able to identify potential scale of impacts at key locations during peak, off-peak, and daily. And then the next phase, we're going to be able to identify impacts to steady intersections during the peak hours and be able to look at mitigation strategies beyond what we can during this screening level. We'll bring in more analysis tools that will get to those type of answers. Next, please. And this slide basically gives you a performance comparison summary between all the alternatives. And it gives it a grade in terms of color, and green being best, and pinkish red being worst. And the categories are transportation system demand, I-205 traffic, diversion effects, cost and revenue, implementation and operations. And then maybe the next slide, I will give you the recommendation. So the initial recommendations from the consultant team is to advance alternative 3 and 4. And if you recall, alternative 3 is the bridge tolls, which is to break it in two. If you cross each bridge, you pay half the toll, and alternative 4 is the segment tolls, which is each segment is a quarter of the total toll. And the team doesn't recommend advancing alternatives 1, 2, or 5. And then we find toll schedule assumptions to improve the regional outcomes, and that will be in the next level analysis. And the rationale are listed but I think I won't go over each, but I think it is to, again, meet sort of that goals of having the least concentrated impact onto the local system, having a system that we can generally expand to a regional tolling system, and again, just spreading out the rerouting effect. Next, please. Thank you.
So we are going to continue to go out and about and give presentations and talk about tolls and really try to get as many comments as possible, get at people's feedback on the purpose and need and the goals and objectives and the alternatives that she just went through today. And can I see the next slide? Thank you so much. And this slide right here is showing you all the different ways that you can comment on what you heard today and where you can go to view the online open house and to fill out the survey. It's right there, OregonTolling.org. It's at the top of the website. And then we also have 3 webinars that are coming up. We have 3 webinars that are coming up, and one is tomorrow. And then you can also submit comments through email or leave a voicemail. So thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, we're here.
Thank you very much. I don't envy your position because I'm sure that you get a lot of targets. I was at the C4 meeting when one of you presented and it wasn't very friendly. Sorry about that. I think that we do have one comment from an audience member or business from the audience. So Tammy, could you bring her up, please?
I cannot. I'm not the host at the moment, but that's Glenda Shearer. If Heather wants to bring her up.
Do I just
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Hi there. My name is Linda Shear. I reside at 1525 Columbia Avenue. I'm very concerned about my community and the possibility of a toll coming to my community. I think that this toll unfairly targets lower income people. There are a lot of people who live in Gladstone and commute for work, and they are people who cannot telecommute. They aren't people of privilege who can sit at home and say, oh, I have the option of going to work now, or I could go later to avoid the toll. And I'm very concerned that it's really a tax on poor people. And I know that there are some aspects that you've considered in terms of like subsidizing tolls, and that, you know, I've read on the page, but I'm just really concerned about the impact that this will have on my community. And there's one other point that I had here. I do have the comment about, I know that there isn't going to be a toll booth, and that this information will be collected and people will be billed. I am very concerned about data privacy, and that, you know, the state of Oregon isn't necessarily known for being good at managing systems and keeping track of things. And so I'm concerned about that as well. Let me think here. Again, I just want to say that this is unfair to people who don't have privilege, who can't, you know, have the option of telecommuting.
Is that it? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Glenda.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I don't have all of the screens up of who's, let's see here. No, I don't want to do that. Are there any counselors that have any comments? I don't have anybody's screens up right now. I don't know who.
I do. This is Counselor Reisner.
Yes.
Can I ask a few?
Yes, please.
So should stay right off the beginning that I have a stake in this, and that I teach over at Stolen Middle School, Bethany area, north of Beaverton, in the Beaverton School District. So I take 205, I-5, 217 to work when we get back into school. Have for the last 6-7 years. So I have a stake in this, in that you're going to tax me for being able to travel all the way over there. So so I'm curious about, I'm talking about money. How much has ODOT spent since House Bill 2017 was passed on this tolling stuff?
I think that's
Anybody?
a question. I think that's a question we're gonna have to get back to you on, because I don't think any of us have that figure handy with us. But we can
Okay.
we will definitely get back to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then also mention that there's been thousands and thousands of comments, and I have yet to talk to anybody since this started a few years ago, anybody that is in favor of this. And reading through your material from like day one, it's extremely vague as to the negative comments, people that don't want it, or downright, you don't put that in your material. So how many people are, is it true that most people don't want this?
Hannah,
Heather?
do you want me to respond?
Well,
If you would like.
I mean, so what?
I mean, I can't speak. We can't speak for everyone.
Well, no. Well,
But we do receive a lot of comments of folks who are opposed to tolls.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why doesn't your material reflect, when gathering information, a huge majority oppose tolling or this project?
I think when we get the comments during the comment period, and I think if you I wasn't here during the feasibility analysis, but there are comment reports that are published. I would guess that you would find it in those comment reports. We certainly will accurately reflect the comments that we hear during this comment period. And my guess is that you will see that most of the comments are opposed to tolls.
Okay.
And we will publish the results for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
In the material that we received prior to this, it's a draft project purpose and need statement. It mentions that the tolling and the project aren't coupled together. They can be independent. Is that true?
Yes. They're
So
two separate projects.
Okay, so is there engineering and things happening as to how to mitigate, the backup between Highway 213 and I-5?
Sorry, I'm not sure I follow the question.
Okay, so I was going to say, so that was a polite way of saying the freeway needs to be widened. So is ODOT working on doing that?
Yes, they are.
So we have the widening project, which would widen from Oregon 213 to Oregon to Stafford, to 3 lanes in each direction. At the Appomattox Bridge, we would have 4 lanes, and it's an aux lane that gets on and off. But that project, we only have funding up into a certain level of design. We don't have funding for all of the design or construction. So that's why this tolling project is coming in and basically is on its own.
So then, from what you were just saying, I say just going to increase it 1 lane between 213 and, in essence, and Stafford. But in your own material, the Portland area and Clackamas County is going to be expanding, thousands and thousands of more people over the next 20, 30, 40 years. Wouldn't it behoove us to expand that to maybe, 5 lanes in both directions while we're doing this?
And
so
I
that
should
we
let
can
you know
accommodate that?
Well, Metro doesn't allow, Metro has a policy that our freeway is limited to 3-lane in each direction maximum, except as far as through lanes. And so we're also being held by certain policy within the region. But then there's also the funding cost of these projects. In this case, we're having trouble just funding the expansion of 1 lane for this segment. And so I think that's why OTC has directed us to study and to go through tolling analysis so that we actually control the demand of the users.
So you're saying that Metro at 600 Northeast Grand, a regional government, is telling the state of Oregon, which has higher authority, what to do?
Well, Metro has the policy for metropolitan area. And so if our facility falls within that, there is certain policy that we have to follow. And one of those, I don't remember the number, but it limits us to 3 lanes per direction as far as through lanes. That's the maximum of through lanes.
So in 50 words, you just said yes. Metro's telling the state how to do their business.
Yes.
Interesting. So also in regards to funding, so we've got Peter DeFazio, who's the chairman of the House Committee on Transportation. Are we beating on his door about getting some money for this from the feds?
I just want to say that I don't know. That's beyond my level, but I do know that if you have questions similar, I think you should direct them at Clackamas County. They've been involved with our work, and they might be able to speak more to sort of some of the questions that you're asking.
Thank you.
Are you just about wrapped up? Because I'd like to let other counselors ask some questions.
Sure. One last one. On page 2, which is presentation page 11, in your draft executive summary, under option 4, it says about tolling multiple roadway segments. Does that mean multiple, as you were just showing us, several sections of 205 versus like tolling on Borland Road, Eck Road, Stafford?
Correct. Right now, we are just being asked to toll this segment of I-205 and on the main line alone. And so just like this graphic, we're splitting that toll. Rather than one toll at the bridge, we're splitting it into 4 segments. So essentially, if you drive less within this segment, you pay less of the toll.
And then, well, shoot. There was a survey that you guys did, I believe, last year, asking where people were traveling to and from on 205. So I'm assuming most that are traveling west in the morning are either going like towards Salem or up into Tigard, Beaverton, Sherwood, Southwest, Lake Oswego, Southwest Portland. Is that correct?
I didn't catch all of that question. I think you got cut off.
Well, wouldn't be the first time. So I guess what I'm saying is, when you were talking about with particular Gladstone at 99E and the river, that people north of there, the vehicle usage went down. And I believe myself and a lot of other people that live in Gladstone and north towards Milwaukee, instead of taking 205, that's going to cost me, I don't know, anywhere from $2 to $10 a trip, I'm going through Portland and then up over the hill. And I know a bunch of my fellow citizens are going to be doing the same thing, or they're going to be going through Canby, as you noted. Trips there are going to be skyrocketing because they're going to be taking 99E through Canby out to Aurora, and kind of mess up things in that part of the world. So I'm totally against this and plan on continuing fighting it. So thank you for your time, and have a great evening.
All right. Counselor Todd, do you have anything? Any questions, comments? You're muted.
Not right now, thank you.
Okay. Counselor Mercero.
Yes, I've got one question. How much or what percent of the I-205 tolling tolls are going to the I-5 bridge replacement project, if any?
I think at this time we don't know. It's a question that I know that Lucinda, who is our tolling director, has asked the OTC the last time she met with them, and so that they can give us directions. We've had questions from other people asking us how will the toll money be spent, and just like how we're doing this work, we're being directed by the OTC to do the analysis, and so I think the tolling cost will ultimately be a decision from the OTC, and how we spend the money is also going to be from the OTC and not any one of the team members or ODOT in particular.
And just to add on to what she was saying, Lucinda is actually formally requesting that on Thursday at the OTC meeting, the Oregon Transportation Commission, that toll revenue that is collected in a corridor remain in that corridor. So those materials are already out. She is asking formally that question. So I would advise, it'd be a great opportunity. It's actually a 2-hour workshop that she's going to be conducting just about tolling and how tolls work in the toll industry, as well as decisions and the timing of decisions that need to get made about the toll program. So it's going to be pretty informative, but hopefully from that she gets, the request is that the revenues generated in a corridor stay in the corridor.
Okay, what I'm hearing is you don't know if it's 0 or 100%. Is it about
That's correct.
25%, 50%?
If they know.
Yeah, that hasn't been determined.
They don't know.
Well, I think that needs to be publicized to people so they know how much this 205 project is in fact going to the darn bridge that's going over I-5 between Oregon and Washington.
I'm sure when that decision's made, it will be publicized, correct?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
But they haven't made the decision yet.
Well, it's a little bit late after the decision's been made when people don't even know about it. Some people don't even realize that it's going, some of the money is going to that bridge replacement.
And I think, that's where the public commenting period is helpful, is if you can make those type of commenting so that can influence the OTC decision to make sure that the funding remains on I-205 and the local system.
Any other questions, Tom?
Well, I just want to be known that that's my recommendation, that they in fact tell people that amount. People need to know.
It's definitely being talked about.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely. All right, anything else, Tom?
No, thanks.
Counselor Ripley?
I have no comment right now.
All right. Counselor Neese,
I have no comment at this time.
Counselor Tracy,
Yeah, so I'm confused here because I think I just heard Heather or Chi talk about where the funding mechanism is for this, and I'm reading on the website that the Congestion Relief Fund is funded by these tolls, the net revenue profits or the net revenue on this tolling, and it doesn't really say who's in charge of that fund or how those monies are dispersed. It just says that the Congestion Relief Fund is designated through the Oregon Constitution, specifying the revenues collected from the use of the operation of the motor vehicles are spent on roadway projects. But I think what Heather said a minute ago, I'm not sure that parallels with what's on the website. Heather, can I ask you to clarify when Councilor Mercer was asking you about the funding mechanism? Could
Sure.
you help me understand that? Because I'm seeing something different than what I thought I heard you say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you're reading is why Lucinda is going to the OTC on Thursday to make this request. So House Bill 2017 did dedicate the Congestion Relief Fund, and you're right, there is not a process for how those funds get spent or the decisions on what projects. So one of the things that, as Hannah was saying, one of the things that they've heard over and over the last 3 years is money collected in a corridor. So if the I-205 is being told, that money should stay in that corridor. And so Lucinda's heard that loud and clear. And so she's requesting on Thursday that the OTC make that policy. So that would be an actual policy that any toll revenue collects. So it's not, you're right, Councilor Tracy, it is not currently a policy. She's hoping that her request to the OTC on Thursday will result in a policy around that.
So my other question to you would be, would the direction that you would go with the OTC be that there would be a separate entity that would be the disbursement mechanism or disbursement committee, for these funds? For instance, if Gladstone began to experience high congestion, would we be able to apply for congestion mitigation through this funding mechanism, which basically it's very vague on your website, and I understand it needs to go through OTC process and be run through the committee, but what I see on the website is that there's disbursement mechanisms here that could go in any direction. To Councilor Mercero's point earlier about the I-5 bridge funding, I mean, I know we're early in this process, but it has been a fairly iterative process for a number of years, or a couple of years at least, right? It feels to me like the funding disbursement mechanism hasn't been decided, which you just stated. Hard for me to understand how we're all supposed to kind of move in the direction of supporting something like this when we don't know the outcome of the funding disbursement mechanism, nor do we know the outcome of the congestion that may actually impact our city. I don't know where you are in the process on that, but I'd be curious about whether or not there's going to be a committee and whether or not it's going to be ODOT overseeing the mechanism or a separate entity in charge of the disbursement of the funding, the funds. Are you telling me that?
I think you're good questions. I think you're several steps, several steps away from, Lucinda's going for the big win from her perspective, which is just get it at least dedicated in the corridor it's collected. And then she's going to continue to work in the toll program to figure out all of that stuff. So,
and I don't question that. I just think in today's, especially today, we have to be very clear about the lineage that's attached to the dollars and how that line goes forward. And when you're asking folks to participate in this process, certainly folks who are elected officials to support the process, I think you need to be clear about the funding and where it's going to go and who's going to control it, because I'm not going to be mean enough to say that the state of Oregon doesn't necessarily manage its funding, but have we not in recent years seen some pretty big debacles with regards to funding? And we're talking about a large amount of money here. So if the infrastructure doesn't get built, or the funding goes to in another direction, to another corridor, appreciating what Lucinda is trying to do, you're still asking for support here, and you're asking for the community citizen support as well. And it's an unanswered, I mean, it's like the sentence is halfway, which is the way I'm feeling. I'm articulating it right now. I'm sorry. It just seems
That's
like
okay.
there's two different things. You said one thing and what's on the website's kind of different from what you said. Now, I'm not saying you're trying to mislead us or the website's misleading. I just don't think you guys are on the same base. And that's what I'm concerned about. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for your information, though.
All right, that's it for the counselors. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for the good questions. This is going to be something ongoing. We're going to have a lot of opportunities to get some questions answered. So I'm sure you guys will be back sometime soon. Thank you.
So do I just hit end and make someone else host?
So you're gonna go over to the right there. You're gonna make me the host again.
And who's me?
Tammy Bannock.
Tammy Bannock.
Okay. So do I hit end and then it says assign host?
You should be able to assign me as the host. I can't see what you're seeing at the moment. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't want to do this wrong, so I'm really sorry.
Please bear with us. Zoom is, it's different.
It's Tammy Bannock?
Yes,
T.
Bannock.
Bannock? Okay.
T. Bannock, yes.
Make host.
Yes.
Yes.
And you have completed your task. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Next, are there any agenda additions or corrections?
No, thank you, Mayor.
No, well, there was one, the removal of the executive session. Is that correct?
On the amended agenda that was sent out yesterday, there's no additions or corrections. But
Okay.
yes, we amended the agenda to remove the executive session and to add the traffic safety high visibility enforcement grant.
Okay, great, thank you. So the first item is the consent agenda. We have items 1 through 6A. Do we have any questions or concerns?
I move that we, I was gonna say just accept the consent agenda. Is that
All right.
okay?
I don't see anybody having any questions, so go ahead and make a motion if you'd like.
Sure, I move that we accept the consent agenda, including item 6A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilor Reisner and seconded by Councilor Tracy. Do we have any additional questions or comments? I don't see any. Tammy, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Yes.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes,
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any correspondence?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right, so a couple of things before we start. First, for those folks that would like to speak, the deadline to accept comments was noon today. As a reminder, we allow 3 minutes for public comment unless there's special circumstances and the additional time has been approved by staff beforehand. Let's see, we're getting to the next page. Second, as I do before every meeting, I'd like to say a few words regarding the City Council. The most important limitation we have sitting here is that we are representing the citizens of Gladstone, not our own personal agendas and beliefs. There have been many times when a decision being made does not align with what we would like personally, but have made a decision based on what is best for the city as a whole. That doesn't mean our personal beliefs have changed, just that the city's needs were more important. As we discuss and consider matters, there are laws and rules we have to use as the basis of our decisions. These start at the federal and state level, then they filter down to our city's comprehensive plan, city charter, codes, and ordinances. We do not have the luxury of randomly making decisions, but instead we have to be consistent and take a path that is defensible. We appreciate you taking the time to call in and participate in this process. I believe we will have your phones muted until it is your time to speak. And if we're not able to mute your phone, please do so. My goal is to keep this meeting respectful and engaging, and I hope all of you can help me do this. So Zoom meetings are a little bit difficult to juggle. So I have a lot of faces staring at me, and I don't know who wants to speak. So to make it easier for the counselors, I'm going to call on you individually, just like I did previously. So I hope that's all right with you. I just don't want to miss anybody and not give you the chance. So first item is number 7, which is resolution 1182, updating the master fee schedule. Staff?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Typically, we like to bring to you the master fee schedule update twice a year. However, you know, we're in an election season, and when staff was reviewing our current ordinance, we realized that the city never established a fee for someone that wanted to declare candidacy. Back in August 2011, the City Council adopted ordinance number 1433, adding a new Title IV that reflected changes in the election process. So in our ordinance, you can either nominate by petition and collect 25 signatures, or an individual can declare candidacy and pay the the fee. This means that an eligible elector can choose to file the petition or do the other and collect signatures. But after the ordinance was implemented in 2011, there was no fee established. So the city researched what other cities do with these same types of process, and it is requested that for a $50 fee in lieu of collecting signatures. So staff wanted to bring this to your attention. If the City Council would like to establish a fee for those that just want to file a candidacy, we recommend that you implement a $50 fee.
Mayor Stemple, you're muted.
All right, thank you. Councilor Ripley, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Neese?
I would like us to move forward on that recommendation of the $50 due to the fact of COVID and what's happening, and people are nervous about people knocking on doors and coming and talking to them. So I think that would be a fair thing to do for this because of what's happened this last year.
Thank you. Councilor Tracy?
So I'm understanding it's an either or, correct? So they can basically apply. I'm concerned about the equity issue here. So either they apply or they go out and get the 25 and pay the fee, or they go out and get the 25 signatures. Is that correct, City Administrator Betts?
Yes, that is correct. And I also will add that if someone wants to gather signatures, they have to submit them a couple weeks sooner than the actual deadline, because they have to be verified through the city and the county elections. If somebody just declares a candidacy, they can actually file on the last day that the petitions are accepted, and they would just pay the $50 fee in lieu of collecting the signatures.
Can we make that clear as we message out if we go ahead and pass this resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
The resolution would be effective this evening if the City Council approved it.
Okay, but we don't want anybody to lose track of the fact that they need to get in there earlier, especially in this season where it's hard to collect the signatures. Just want to make sure that it's balanced. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. No more comments from me.
Thank you. Councilor Reisner?
Yes, I appreciate Councilor Neese's comments, because I'm totally opposed to having just a declaration paying a fee. I think it's special going out and getting signatures, which shows that you're getting some support from the community. But as you reminded me, we do have this pandemic going on, and it's definitely going to change things in regards to elections, going door to door and all that stuff. So No, I don't have any questions or anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Todd?
Oh, let me unmute myself. Yeah, I was sort of along the same lines as Councillor Reisner, was that it seemed like 25 signatures would sort of be a minimal attempt at sort of having constituents wanting you to run. But I think we're in a different time and a different place right now than we have been in the past. I also am concerned, well, I was concerned, I guess, that it's not, not a $50 thing, because then there's an equity sort of type thing that I don't think it should cost money to run for city government. But I think this is a different time. And I think that if you're not comfortable with going out and getting the 25 signatures, then there has to be some sort of a balance to that for the people that have. So I have nothing to say beyond that right now.
Thank you. Councilor Mercero?
I've got no comments.
Okay. Well, then would somebody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion, Councilor Neese,
Okay.
that we move forward on the, they can either get signatures or the $50 fee, and that it to be specified on the time frame when it all has to be turned in by.
Okay, so you're making a motion to approve Resolution 1182, adopting a revised master fee schedule to include a declaration of candidacy file fee with that extra, with additional verbiage.
I'm going to need to.
Yes.
Right. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion
Councilor
was made by Councilor Neese and seconded by Councilor Reisner. Do we have any further discussion? No. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Yes.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. Next item is number 8, Parklet Pilot Program and an outdoor dining and retail and private parking lots program. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We hope that you're as excited about this opportunity as staff is. Since we've been dealing with the pandemic, we've been trying to get creative as to how we can assist our local businesses. Our neighbors, Oregon City and Milwaukee, have started a pilot program for parklets, which basically means that if a business has a parking spot in front of their business that they want to put outdoor seating into, that there is a process where they could fill out an application, and as long as they meet certain design standards, that the city would allow to do them. We're hoping that that would help with the businesses that are affected by the physical distancing requirements. And it would be a temporary program that would start August 15th if the council chose, and we would run it through November 30th. And then the city council will review the program to determine if this is something that they wanted to continue year-round, seasonally in March 2021. We also are looking at an outdoor dining and retail and private parking lots program. So maybe you have a business that has a large parking lot and they would like to do outdoor seating in their parking area instead of on city parking. And so we are providing 2 options for the businesses to apply for that. We had our senior planner review the draft application and the design requirements, which are in your packet tonight. And we have heard from one business on Portland Avenue that is interested in exploring this, which is one of the reasons why we decided to go ahead and try to formalize this and bring it to the city council. The application fee is a nominal $25, where typically if we were not in a pandemic, this would probably be closer to a $100 application. But our goal is to not make money and to streamline this process so that our businesses have an opportunity to maybe take their business out into the street And it would specifically be on the community commercial zone, which is primarily on Portland Avenue. And the outdoor dining and retail in the private parking lot would be for the entire city, which could include establishments on McLaughlin if they wanted to try to utilize some of their parking for that. So those are the high level pieces. It is a pilot program. We're looking for the city council to give us a thumbs up or no, let's not try this. And then we would like to be able to send the applications out beginning this week.
All right, thank you. Councilor Ripley, any questions or comments?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you. Councilor Neese?
Oh, I had to unmute. No, I'm okay.
Councilor Tracy?
Yeah, so as I'm looking through the material, we're governing on the number of parklets allowed along the roadway. Is that correct, City Administrator Betts?
We're governing the number of spots that a business could close off. And like I've said right now, in talking with the business owners down there, we have 2 businesses that are interested, but they share 2 parking spots. And we have 1 business that is interested in using the private parking lot for outdoor seating.
Do they own that private parking lot?
As part of the business, they do.
Okay, because there's a couple things I'm wondering about here. So, who's going to get in the middle of who's going to get in the middle of 2 businesses that one wants to maintain the parking spot and the other one wants to turn it into a parklet? How are we going to work through that?
Well, we would have to mitigate through it. Management has been all about finding solutions. And so certainly, let's say the business applies for this application, we would first route it to our senior planner to make sure that they meet the criteria. And then we would work with the fire department, public works, and the police department. But certainly it's going to require some intimate conversations with the business owners. And I don't think the business owners want to take away parking from each other down there, but if that did happen, we would have to try to mitigate that and talk through it.
So historically, I've understood that when a certain business was was located on Portland Avenue, that was a big concern for a lot of the other surrounding businesses, was that business, because of the employee base they had, were eating up a lot of the slots. And so what I'm wondering is, do we have this group of business owners together talking about this and saying, you know, yes, I'll give up 1 slot, you give up a slot. I just want to know what kind of background we've done with them so that we're not caught in the middle of a fight between 2 businesses.
No, and I appreciate that because they all do have varying opinions down there. And again, when we have talked to businesses down there, there's only 2 right now that we have found that are interested. The rest of the businesses have not wanted to close off the parking because they want people to be able to park there.
Okay, and I will add too that there is another business owner down there that has, I think, one of the largest parking lots that's used by other businesses and has had a hard time controlling the use of her and his property for a number of years now. So I don't want us to invite folks to be able to come in and say, oh, well, you know, the city said this is okay, because this is still private property that these folks manage and own, and they are able to get, you know, whatever, basically whatever commerce they can generate with that piece of property. It's entitled to them, not their neighboring businesses, not unless they've worked out a deal with them. So I'm hesitant here because it sounds to me like there's more room at the table to have this conversation, or more time at the table for this conversation. And maybe I'm missing something.
No, but I think what we've experienced down there is they all have differing opinions, but it is going to take permission from your neighbors to want to make this work. And the property owner has to provide consent in order to do this.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I just, I know some of the cast, I guess, is the way I'll leave it. So thank you, though. I appreciate the information.
All right, Councilor Reisner.
I also have talked to several business owners down there that a couple of them actually approached me about doing something like this. And so I support it. I understand Councilor Todd's concern. I'm thinking being it's just a pilot project, it's only going to be nice weather for the next couple of months, which would give us an idea as to maybe what kind of glitches will happen, so that when we address this later, that we'll have some information, more solid information to go with. So I support it.
Thank you. Councilor Todd?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know that we had talked about that the senior planners would be involved with sort of managing a lot of the guidelines, but I'm assuming that the senior planner is not going to be involved with maintenance of litter removal and failure to maintain the parklet, or no smoking or vaping. Will that be code enforcement? Who will be dealing with that? Because
yes, if we get complaint driven, then code enforcement will have to assess that situation as well. And we can also add a stipulation that an applicant is required to get consent from the neighboring businesses if that brings more comfort to the personalities that we're dealing with in that area as well.
maybe. I think it's a great idea. I've talked to, of course, a lot of the business owners down there. I'm not sure. I mean, I think if we have one or two, I think it's a good place to start. We should look at it because I think we're in this for a while now. So we need to move ahead with that and sort of work with those personalities and see how to make it work for everybody. That's all.
Thank you. And Councilor Tracy, I'll circle right back to you. Councilor Mercero?
I agree with Councilor Todd's and Councilor Tracy's considerations, and I suspect we could need to do a little talking amongst the businesses, or allow them to talk, whatever, to iron those things out.
All right, thank you. Councilor Tracy?
It occurs to me that their businesses are talking right now because one of business is creating a fairly large amount of customers, and that they are having some struggles. But I so far what I've seen or what I've heard is it's been fairly congenial back and forth between the businesses, Jackie. So maybe they are already starting their dialogue, and maybe this is just a continuation of the dialogue. I just want to make sure that we don't get caught in the middle of it and one person is playing the city against another business owner. That just doesn't seem like it would be fair to anyone. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Anybody else want me to circle back? No? All right. Well, then would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure. I make a motion to approve the City of Gladstone Parklet Pilot Program and Outdoor Dining and Retail and Private Parking Lots Program to allow businesses to use outdoor parking spaces for seating and retail uses.
I will second that.
Motion was made by Councilor Reisner and seconded by Councilor Neese. Do we have any additional comments or concerns? I don't see any. Tammy, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Ripley,
Yes.
Councilor Neese,
Yes.
Councilor Tracy,
Yes.
Councilor Reisner,
Yes.
Councilor Todd,
Yes.
Councilor Mercero,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. It's good that we went with this one because my suggestion was to close the entire street down like they do in Sherwood, but that wouldn't have gone over very well. All right, next is item number 9, discuss appointment process to city boards, committees, commissions for January of 2021. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think we have discussed this various times throughout the year, and the Council had asked for this to come back to them on the August agenda. As you can see in the staff report, we did some research in Oregon City, Milwaukee, Wilsonville, and Happy Valley to kind of look at how do they appoint volunteers to their boards, committees, and commissions. And what we found is that in general, they do some form of interviews with the new applicants. If they have reappointments, those are typically done without an interview. And so right now with the city of Gladstone, we have 2 vacant positions on the audit committee, 3 vacant positions on the budget committee, 2 vacant on the library advisory board, 1 vacant on the senior center advisory board, and 2 vacant positions on traffic safety advisory board. Given the pandemic that we had, there were several months when we weren't even meeting as advisory boards. And now with these appointments late in the summer, we were trying to determine, should we really just try to focus our efforts on January 2021 instead of trying to fill these applications one at a time. So what we're proposing is that that the City Council go ahead and start to advertise for the January 2021 year, the beginning of November, for the month of November, get through the election process. Then December 1st through the 5th, that we could interview for new applicants. And I'll talk about what the makeup of that interview committee could look like. December 8th, we would come back and appoint members for the January 2021 year. Then on January 5th, we would do our annual orientation. January 22nd and 23rd is when the City Council will do its new strategic planning session. And we would like to get the boards, committee, and commissions to submit their annual work plan sooner rather than later in the year that we're typically doing. And so what we found with other cities, when they do interviews, it's not really the full City Council that does the interviews. Typically, it is the mayor, it's one other member of the City Council, the staff liaison of the specific committee, and the chair from the committee the applicant is applying for. So if the City Council did want to interview new applicants, that is one makeup of an interview committee that you guys could consider doing. But what that also means is that there would be a commitment between December 1 and 5th to complete all of the interviews for the new applicants. Also wanted to make a note that we will be discussing dissolution of the Gladstone Library Board as it is currently written in the charter, which is one of the reasons why we've left the Library Advisory Board vacant positions this year as well. So I'll answer any questions you may have.
So we have these vacant positions, but we're also going to have some where their terms expire this year. Is that correct? So it could be significantly more than what we have listed here?
Yes, we would have these positions in addition to whatever is expiring. And because we have a biennium budget process this next year, we do need a full budget committee appointed.
Okay, so I'll go through the counselors. Counselor Ripley.
I think that's a great idea. But one thing that that I would like to see outlined before we put people on committees is what's the job of those committees? Because it seems like the parks and traffic is all, everybody's about trying to spend money and change laws. They're not planning events at parks or planning events for traffic safety, but they're always wanting to spend money and change rules and laws places. So I think along with that, we need to outline what the duties and responsibilities of each one of these committees are, so they're not spending time in areas they don't need to be, and they can spend their time properly.
Yeah.
That's my only thought.
Thank you. Counselor Neese.
No, I'm okay, and I agree with Counselor Ripley. We need to have better job descriptions so they have a better understanding of each of the positions and what they're applying for.
Question for Jackie. We do have lists kind of an outline of what their duties are for the different boards and committees already.
Yeah, the municipal code has the bylaws and the requirements for each committee, and we would make sure that people that are applying would get a copy of that before they applied, so they would understand what their role is. And that's also the focus of the annual orientation, is that we go through what each committee's roles and responsibilities are for the year.
And then we also have them do a work plan, which is approved by the council, and that's where we could give them better direction on what projects we want them to focus on.
Correct.
So we're trying to capture all of that. All right.
It's giving more detail,
Okay.
and I think that's helpful.
Okay. Counselor Tracy?
I'm good with it. I'd like to see us have 1 or 2 counselors that can avail their time between the 1st and the 5th. I'll raise my hand and say I would sit on a committee, evaluation committee.
And I'll second that. I would do the same thing.
Counselor Reisner?
I like what's proposed. I like the idea of interviewing, because in the past, a lot of times it's just been a popularity kind of contest, or we had no idea as to who any of the applicants were. And a lot of times they weren't even at meetings where they were appointed. So I like being able to put a name and maybe, you know, in the process, I would assume find out why, more than just written on paper, why they're interested. And which I appreciate that anybody being interested to participate in the process, you know, of volunteering. I like this.
All right, Counselor Todd?
Yeah, I like it as well. The application, I don't think, has changed in 10 years. I don't know, maybe more than that. So there's not a lot of chance to go into depth of why you're applying for that. I am confused what will happen if we have 3 vacant positions and we have only 1 person, you know, applying for that, and we interview them. You know, is there going to be sort of a selection of them just because they're sort of it, or will we redo another round with that? What will happen if we don't have enough eligible applicants?
Good question.
I would think that that would be up to the committee to make a recommendation after they interview that person, and whether or not they felt like they met the qualifications and would be a good fit, or if they want us to re-solicit. The city's really got to get creative on how we are attracting people to want to volunteer. And that's on us to maybe look at the application, making sure that we're doing social media and specifically talking to individuals and encouraging them to apply. But we have to have the budget committee vacancies filled. That is ORS statute, that you have the same number of budget committee members as you do elected officials. So we have to recruit to fill those positions.
Right. Is that it? Counselor Mercero?
I believe the council has been driving towards this method of thought for some time. In the past, it seemed to be kind of a last minute thing, and at times there wasn't any consistency. And we didn't really know, in some cases, like some have mentioned, what capability a person has or desire to really do the job. So I'm in favor of this.
All right, anybody else want me to circle back? All right, would somebody like to make a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the City of Gladstone's process for appointments to boards, committees, and commissions for January 2021.
A second.
Motion was made by Counselor Neese and seconded by Counselor Todd. Any further discussion? I don't see any hands. So Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Yes.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, thank you. So next is business carried forward, and we do have one item. It is the DEQ MAO. So Jackie, could you tell us all about that one?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This actually is in your packet tonight to show progress is being made. Back in April 2019, the City of Gladstone and Department Environmental Quality entered into a mutual agreement and order that allows the city to make capital improvements to correct the deficiencies in our sanitary sewer overflows in the Clackamas River. The reason why I'm bringing this to you tonight is that we did have a stipulation that we require to fulfill by July 31st, 2020. We provided you a copy of the letter that we sent DEQ that states that we have met that compliance order. And I'm gonna call it for the record. The compliance requirement is to begin data analysis, hire a consultant, and allocate budget for the inflow and infiltration study, share budget and consultant deliverable requirements with DEQ when determined. The beauty of this requirement is that Clackamas County Water Environmental Services took an interest in also doing some infiltration and inflow. So they actually let the contract out, and the City of Gladstone is going to be able to piggyback onto their contract with them to complete this work. And we found out today that we're going to be able to bring the actual contract to the City Council for approval on September 8th. So this is just kind of a heads up that when people start asking you where is their rate increase money going for utility rates, it's going to go towards this estimated $462,000 study that we are required to do by DEQ to help fix our infrastructure. So this is good news in our minds because we are making progress. And next month, we will bring you a copy of the IGA between Wes and the city, and we'll outline the details of how it's going to be paid for. And I believe unless you have any questions, that's the update.
All right, Councilor Ripley, any questions?
No
Councilor Neese?
questions.
No, I'm okay.
Councilor Tracy?
I know he will.
None for me, thank you.
Councilor Reisner?
None for me.
Councilor Todd?
No.
Councilor Mercero?
I'm okay.
All right, thank you very much for that, Jackie. I'm glad that we're actually moving along and that we have some milestones met. So the next item is business from the audience. I believe there's 2 people that have signed up. Tammy, could you call them forward?
Yes, that is correct. The first one is Angela Riley.
Hi, I was just wanting to speak about the listening sessions last month. I think we can do much better. We need to see that the city cares about participating in anti-racist work. We need more of this sessions to happen, and we need to get a moderator in diversity, someone who can do justice. I felt the distraction and lack of engagement while people were sharing their experiences with racism was disappointing. And I know that a lot of people weren't sharing, everybody on council and stuff. It was just a matter of the people speaking who had experiences. But I think to be more engagement, we need to hear from the police chief. I would love to know where you stand on the topic and what's being done in Gladstone to train officers in diversity and how we're going to keep our force free of discrimination. It was disappointing. Okay, said that already, sorry. I just feel like we need to do better, and Gladstone needs to acknowledge and publicly address racism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next.
The next one is Kelly Cheney.
Hi there. This is a topic I've tried to look into on Gladstone's website and other websites, which is like some sort of COVID response committee. I see that we have a link to a good COVID update page with information where the city stands and videos by the mayor and the little COVID ticker across the top of the page where you can click it, and that's really good. And I was thinking maybe this was a non-issue when the meeting started. But then when we got into the parking spots, I said, oh, maybe this is an issue, to, you know, have some sort of a centralized committee or person, and maybe that exists. Maybe it's the council or just the city administrator, but it's a big job, I think bigger than we realize, because I was thinking if that what you guys voted on with the parking spots was run by the city attorney, because there are COVID guidelines that these businesses are responsible for. Now, by using our, you know, there's rules with the sidewalks and parking lots. Have we put Gladstone on the hook now if somebody sues one of those businesses for a COVID-related matter? Does it increase our insurance? Is there, you know, and I think Tracy brought that up about maintenance and things like that. That could go, it goes a lot bigger, but then even just with regard to the COVID issue, these things are going to come up in every department and every section, and there might just be a good person or committee to run that by and make sure we're not inadvertently agreeing or missing something that's going to hurt the city later on. Maybe having a few citizens on the committee might help divert, you know, animosity later on, because you're talking about and I'm using this example because we just talked about it, but businesses having issue, or maybe a neighbor is going to be like, well, what the heck's that about? I didn't know anything about that. And just sort of expanding that a little bit. It would be extra help, community involvement. I looked on other city websites, and they have a lot more click-throughs for resources for the community, and not about where they can go for extra help during the time. I see we have a couple. But again, it's a big job, and you guys all have other things to do as well. And I don't know what it would look like. This is just a, you know, I'm throwing it out there, and you guys can chat about it. The Clackamas County Public Health Advisory, they have a member from Milwaukee, Happy Valley, Molalla, and Lake Oswego, and I didn't see Gladstone on there. So maybe it's more of a Clackamas umbrella, because we have the Clackamas Chamber of Commerce. There's like Canby has their Chamber of Commerce kind of handle this, and they have a lot of links on there. So I'm thinking like you guys just pass that thing, and it's just because what I do for a living, all of a sudden liability flew through my brain. Like, what did we just agree to if, you know, people aren't social distancing or whatever the guidelines are, and somebody gets in a fight about it and there's a big lawsuit? Gladstone is the deep pocket, right? So they're going to sue Gladstone. They're going to sue everybody they can on this COVID issue. So it's broader than that too. Like who's doing our reporting? How are they doing our reporting? I don't think things will get better with COVID before they get worse, especially as we go into the winter months. And so this would sort of be a preemptive move to kind of, and again, I don't know exactly what it would look like, but I would love to see a little bit of discussion on that. And I'm not clear who is managing it.
Ms. Cheney, the 3 minutes is up.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a quick comment, Kelly. I appreciate the fact that you want to help. That's amazing, because this has been a very challenging experience. We as a city really don't have a whole lot of decisions and a whole lot of leeway on what we can do, because we have to abide by what the federal government tells us, then the state, then the county, and our only job is to make sure that we're in compliance. That's it. We don't have any other real decisions to make. We have an emergency operations group already in place, and this is their job to kind of work through that. I don't know where a citizens committee could fit in that because of the liability and risk. I would be real hesitant to have a citizen be the conduit for information, because we don't want you to be the target. We want people to go to the solid resources, and maybe we can do a better job of putting those resources on our website, but people need to get driven to the CDC, the OHA, the county, the state. Those are the websites that are going to have the real up-to-date information. And then we have CERT, which I would love for people to get involved with, which is really the emergency citizen group that should be on the ground helping if we need the support. So I don't know how that would look either. I don't, there is a lot of risk and liability, absolutely.
What was the name? That CERT, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, CERT, CERT, yeah. So we can talk about it more, but yeah, it's been really challenging. There's been a month and a half when this first started where things changed by minute, and I'm not kidding. It was a minute by minute change, and it would be really hard for somebody to be the conduit and have to be up on all of those changes. And it's still changing a lot. It's amazing to me, 6 months into it, how little people really know. And that's higher up. It's not just us. It's the whole system is really not knowing how this is going to move forward. So, but thank you for that. I've got your name and your number, so we'll see what we can do. So that, is there anybody else on business from the audience?
There is not.
Okay, I see people raising their hands, but unfortunately we had to have people's comments by noon today. So if you want, you can send us an email with questions and we can certainly address it, or bring it to the next council meeting, and we would love to hear from you. So next is business from the council. So we'll start with Councilor Ripley.
I don't have anything right now.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Neese.
I have nothing right now.
Councilor Tracy.
At the moment, I have nothing.
Councilor Reisner.
I just wanted to let the other members of the council and those out there watching know that the library board has been very active in the role as we go forth with having a, the county build a new library, and the combining of both.
Hey, people, please mute their phones, please, other than Councilor Reisner. Thank you.
That many of our members are on other committees and have been very active. And as mentioned earlier, we need to start the discussion, by December as to if we want to have an advisory type committee related to the library, being that our official library board is going to be coming to an end. So other than that, thank you and have a great, cool rest of your August.
Councilor Todd.
I have nothing right now. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Mercero.
I have nothing either.
Oh, wow. Okay, well then I'm going to make up for all of you guys because I have a couple things. First, the food pantry. It's still a big part of our community. Food insecurity is huge, even though we don't see it. It's not real obvious, but it's a hidden need. The weekly numbers are rising, especially in the homebound senior delivery group. We're still doing the modified walk-up pre-packed box model Thursdays off Nelson Lane from 3:30 to 5:30. Last week I met with Senior Center Director Colin Black and the Senior Advisory Board Chair Nancy Turner to talk about the senior delivery program and how it's expanding. And we decided that they're going to start delivering boxes to their, it's not Meals on Wheels, but it's their meal delivery. So they'll be handling a big chunk of what our food pantry's been doing. We're gonna still give them the bulk food, but they're gonna call the seniors and be able to pack them so they're more customized to the individual. So really excited about that. We're still gonna be taking on more customers or clients at the food pantry and delivering to those that aren't the meal delivery type clientele. If you know of anybody that needs help, please, our services are confidential We're welcoming, we're supportive, and we know that there's a lot more people out there that need the food that are too afraid to ask or too embarrassed to ask. So please send them my direction or to Colin Black's. The Clackamas County Coordinating Executive Committee and the C4 regular meeting spent all of our meetings talking about I-205 tolling. And I can tell you that the majority of the leadership is not in favor of tolling unless we are assured that the funds stay in the I-205 corridor. We will not support anything other than that. We urge everybody to stay informed and supply your comments as appropriate, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities to do that. We have a really good group down in Salem that's representing Clackamas County finally, and they are trying to push our needs forward, which we're really excited about. Now, C4 had made a decision that we don't want to send a collective letter condemning their options. But what we would like are the individual jurisdictions or individuals to send letters with their comments. So here's where you send it to: the Oregon Transportation Commission, 355 Capitol Street Northeast, MS number 11, Salem, Oregon, 97301-3871. And the Chief of Staff is Jess McGraw. So please, please send your comments and concerns their direction. During the Parks and Rec Board meeting last night, Chief Schmerber went over his review of the park rules. And he's recommending that the violations be changed from misdemeanors to Class A infractions that will have a civil penalty. This is more in line with other jurisdictions and what he's experienced in his own career. There was a presentation from Jean Akers regarding the status of the Gladstone Nature Park Master Plan. Everything's moving forward. She hopes to have concept options, 2 or 3, to the Parks Board next month. Then there'll be community engagement October and November, and hope to have the master plan done by the end of December. We received updates on what the police are doing on the encroachment issues in the Ridgegate Park. Jim Wynot updated us on the issues with the hot weather in our parks and the amount of garbage that is being collected and thrown around. It's being handled, but if anybody wants to go down and help pick up garbage, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And there was concern regarding the original agreement with the fire department and their training facility down at Meldrum Bar. There's a lot of promises, and it doesn't look like a lot of them have been completed. So that's something that I'm not sure if the parks needs to take it to the fire department or if Jim will. There's a High Rock Solve cleanup this Saturday, August 15th, 10 to noon, and they'll be staging up on the bridge next to DMV. And last, COVID, it's still very important. A lot of people don't believe it exists, but it does. And it is affecting absolutely everybody. This Gladstone, as of August 7th, had increased our cases by 11 just in the past 30 days, which brings it to 40. That's a 27% increase. And I can't stress enough that doing very simple things are going to make a difference. And that's wear a mask when you're in public, social distance, and don't gather in groups of more than 10. I spent a lot of time down in the parks because people were complaining about the number of people and the lack of compliance. And I understand that some of you don't care, but you know what? Care about how others are going to be impacted by your not being in compliance. So in the meantime, be safe, be kind, and considerate to others. So that's all I had for today. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilor Reisner and tandemly seconded by Councilor Todd and Councilor Tracy. Do we have any further discussion? I don't see any. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Ripley,
Yes.
Councilor Neese,
Yes.
Councilor Tracy,
Yes.
Councilor Reisner,
Yes.
Councilor Todd,
Yes.
Councilor Mercero,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. Meeting is adjourned at 8:19 p.m.